Hello, gang. If you saw right there, the sound of the beep, right, doesn't quite line up because I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in when we touched the wood. Okay. So, anyways, that's Garrett Barker running a Husqvarna 350 with a 346 XP top end on it, built by Matt House. And the reason I wanted to do a side-by-side comparison of these two saws is because both of them now, it is known what their horsepower numbers, and I wanted to showcase the difference between an entire horsepower and what difference it makes in the cut. Excuse me. Now, my Redmax dynoed at a measly 5.4 horsepower, but there are reasons that I can point to with that, but that's not important to this video. We'll get into that whenever I do the dyno run video of all of my saws and where they dynoed at. But suffice to say, I learned a lot going to this race as well as preparing for the race and after the race getting things dynoed. So let's break it down. At Grant's house, the night before this video, we had done testing between all of our 50cc saws that we were running at the race the next day. And what we found was that Matt House's saw, which is known to produce right at 6.5 horsepower, maybe 6.4, maybe 6.6. I'm not sure, but I think it's right at 6.5 horsepower. And I'm looking at the times that from Grant's house, Matt's saw did it in 2.1 seconds roughly, and mine did it in 2.3 seconds. Some of them were in the 2.2 and stuff like that, but basically you could see there was 0.2 of a second between the Matt House built 6.5 horsepower saw and my Redmax, which we found out later produces 5.4 horsepower. There was 0.2 of a second difference between the two saws. And we get to the race. Both Garrett and myself, we had nice clean runs. He got to the wood faster than I did, so his time is even better. And then I had failings in my transitions, whereas he had really nice, good, smooth transitions. And so what we saw is, what are the times exactly? Garrett's time in the wood, the time for the race was slightly different, but in the wood, 5.7, and mine was 6.6. And so that is 0.9 of a second difference between the two of us. That's not even a full second. And the 0.2 of a cut per slice adds up to 0.6 of a second. And then my failures in transitioning probably adds up to the other 0.3 of a second. And I was, I don't know, curious to see how close they were and how that played out and stuff. But this is what A, good operator performance gives you, and B, an entire, I hate that stupid thumbs up. I need to figure out how to turn that off. But anyways, 0.2 of a second per slice adds up to him beating me by nearly a full second. So, yeah. The things you think you know, and then you show up and you get your ass handed to you. I got my ass handed to me in every single race. And most of that, though, I mean, my saws performed well. I was mid-pack, which is all I really was hoping to be, honestly. I mean, everybody hopes to win, but I knew that I wasn't going to win any of the races. Flat out knew it, you know. But there was a stark contrast between this race. This is the tip-up race up in Michigan, and Sawfest. Sawfest has rules in place, and they pretty much can't get the saws this hot. Now I will say this 350, I believe, is following the Sawfest rules, but a lot of the other saws, like for instance, the person who placed first in this was Jeff Stiegel. I think he placed first. He was also running a 346 XP variant. I believe his saw was built by Eric Copsey, but I'm not certain on that at all. I don't know. But what I will say is like the rules of Sawfest, you have to have a choke and you have to have an air filter. I don't know if he was running either of those two things. Maybe he was running both. I don't know. It was a good, strong, fast saw, that's for sure. I mean, it was really, really a good runner. But, you know, this one didn't have, this race didn't have the rules that Sawfest has. And so regardless of what Garrett Barker on the Matt House built saw and Jeff Stiegel were running is irrelevant. The point is this race drew a lot, I hate to even say it, higher caliber of saws that were running. There were some really fast saws there. And I learned a lot. I learned that what I am building is really great work saws, okay? Which is fantastic. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. That's a wonderful thing, right? The sad thing comes in when, you know, I'm trying to build race saws. And so it is kind of heartbreaking, especially whenever you see that number 5.4. And like I said, I'll talk further about that in the dyno video. I have thoughts on that. But yeah, I'm trying to build saws for racing. And so what I have, the hurdle that I have to get over now is figuring out how to make the power that I'm making at a higher RPM. So all the saws that I have been building, they peak out way too low in the RPM range. And I've got to figure out what I need to do in order to get them to make their power curve 1,000 or even 2,000, maybe 3,000 RPMs higher in the RPM range. And that, I don't know. I don't know. This is a journey that I'm on, and I'm still having a lot of fun with it, which is really good. Really good news. I'm not getting bored with it and tired of it or anything like that. But like, yeah, it's I'm building pretty outstanding work saws. Really, they're truly great. But I'm trying to build race saws. And so as good as that is, it's not good enough. I need to step up to the next level, and I got to figure out how to do that. Which, you know, like on one side, the pessimist side is, well, that's heartbreaking, right? You know, but on the optimist side, I'm really kind of happy about it because that means I don't know everything, and I really enjoy learning and going to the next level. And so hopefully it's nothing but well, it is going to be uphill battle, but I keep going up. That's the desire, the hope, and we want to take everything to the next level. I have tests, pretty much immediate tests to do on the Redmax. I'll probably get to some of them this week. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I've got to test very specific things, try and get that Redmax to perform in the higher RPM range, because the deal is I'm making plenty of power. As I see it right now, I'm making plenty of power. I'm just not making enough RPM. And that's what horsepower is. Horsepower is the power that you have, which is torque. Torque is your real power, okay? And where you make it in the RPM range. You know, we have I don't know what the formula is right offhand, but it's torque times RPM divided by something gives you your horsepower. So if I can make this exact same amount of horsepower that I'm making with the Redmax, it's 5.4 horsepower. If I can make that just 1,000 RPMs higher, then my horsepower will be probably 6 horsepower, right? So it's all about getting the RPMs, and we got to figure out how to do that. So far, right now, I don't exactly know what I'm missing, but I'll figure it out. One thing that I did learn, and this comes by way of Morgan. I'll give him the credit here where he deserves it. He said something kind of offhandedly, and I interpreted it in my own way. And basically what he said, it was talking about high exhaust roof. High exhaust roof. He's on and on and on about that. I'm not saying that he builds everything with a high exhaust roof. We were just talking about a specific topic. He was trying to explain something to Steve, who was there, and I heard him say something, and I went, oh, and a little bit of a light bulb popped off. If you watch the channel, you know that I'm big on crankcase pressure. Well, the reason why you need to have crankcase pressure is to overcome the pressure that is above the piston, right? You got to push your fuel and air mixture above that, and you need to be able to kind of push the exhaust pressure out. Well, by running a high exhaust roof, then that gets your exhaust out faster. We all know that, right? But specifically, it lowers the pressure above the piston more quickly. So therefore, you don't need as much crankcase pressure to push through and help get that exhaust out. See what I'm saying? So I think possibly, and this is a lot of putting together what other people have done that I know and everything. Like that Matt House 350. I don't know his numbers, but let me guess. Okay, 96 degrees on the exhaust roof. All right. I know a lot of stuff gets brought into there with compression, which we need to talk in length about compression, because I think that many folks have compression fuddled up in their mind. And they think that in order to build power, you have to have a lot of compression. And I do not think that that is true. However, on to with the topic at hand. If Matt is running a 96 degree exhaust roof, what is happening is, of course, the exhaust is exiting faster. Of course it is. Well, in doing so, then we have a much lower pressure area above the piston than I do with the Redmax, which is at 102 exhaust roof. Okay, I mean, someone running 96 degree exhaust roof has 6 degrees more time to start getting that exhaust out. So it's happening quicker. And the pressure drops faster, which means the transfers coming up do not need to be at such a high pressure in order to overcome the pressure that is in your combustion chamber, which leads to being capable of feeding your fuel up above the piston much more quickly, which serves to build power at a higher RPM. So, as scary as it is for somebody like me, I mean, it's scary to do a high exhaust roof because you're afraid you're going to ruin the cylinder. And these cylinders ain't cheap. This cylinder right here, this is one of those 550 cylinders, right? This thing is effing expensive, like to buy a brand new one of these, you're looking at $200 in that ballpark. And so it's a mistake that you don't want to make. Not only is it $200, it's also, I've got to do this again. And so that's why so many folks, I assume, so many folks are afraid to go with more aggressive numbers because they're afraid to mess up a cylinder that they don't want to have to port again a second time and purchase again a second time. So yeah, that's where we're at. So I'm going to have to learn to be okay with pushing it out a little bit further. And so that Redmax, what are the plans with that? First, there are going to be more plans with the carburetor and the intake that I need to look into and try and get more power with that. But then I think with that one, I did so little destructive work to it that I think I can go back in and just port that same cylinder a second time and do something like 96-degree exhaust roof and really put it down further so that I can keep my compression up. It's all a game, and it's all, quite honestly, a mystery. You know, I mean, you're trying to figure out stuff, and even if somebody is wanting to give you advice and knowledge, it's not that simple because they're going to do things slightly different than you do things. And so it's not straight up math. There's a lot of style that goes in there as well. And anyways, I'm looking forward to seeing what can happen, what we can come up with. But yeah, and the craziest thing is even Matt's 6.5 horsepower 350 did not beat Grant's very mildly ported 550. It straight up didn't, not a single time. It came really close, but it never beat it. And if Grant was to put that 550 XP on the dyno, I would not be surprised to learn that that thing doesn't even put out 6 horsepower. And so again, this will be talked about with the dyno video. There's a lot of stuff that's happening that's very contrary to what one would think. And it's like, what do you look for? Do you chase horsepower numbers or you chase time in the cut? I'm going to say right now that for now, I don't give a shit about the horsepower numbers. I'm going to chase time in the cut. Because the whole point of all of these fast saws that I'm trying to build is for racing. And so time in the cut is what's important. And I will say this much, by a long shot, the fastest saw that I have peaked at 8,500 RPM. Which is just stupid. And in the races, it beat Grant's 395 XP that had a pipe on it and everything. And I'm talking about my 2100, right? My 2100 beat Grant's 395 XP that was ran by Chad Wilhelm. And I'm not certain, but I pretty much can guarantee that if you put that thing on a dyno, it would peak considerably higher than 8,500 RPM. 8,500 is low on the RPM range. And it still cut really well. And, you know, you would think that maybe it would be slower than this Redmax, which this Redmax peaked probably somewhere around 9.5, you know. And so it's like, well, what the hell? So very contrary results to what I thought that I was going to get when going on to the dyno. But everybody says it, you know, your first trip to the dyno and many other trips to the dyno, quite often are absolutely soul-shattering and heartbreaking. But it does answer a lot of questions, gives a lot of knowledge, and it's fantastic. However, dyno results, I am on the fence of whether or not. I mean, I don't know what to think of them. I don't want to say they're useless because it's real. It's a number that's actually happening, right? But to base everything off of that number, you shouldn't do that. If you're trying to build a fast saw, you should probably just base everything off of time in the cut and go with that, because unless you are good enough at sharpening chains to where you can tailor it to fit the RPM that you're running, then you're just using a stock chain, and they're built. I mean, even if you're sharpening it, 99 out of 100 dudes that think that they can sharpen it really great and stuff, they're slower than a stock chain. Oh, and the square file chain that I had made for the 325 for that Redmax, we tested it, and it was slower than a stock chain out of the box. And you would never know that running them. Feels great. It's cutting so good. It's cutting so good. But it was 0.2 of a second slower than a stock out of the box steel RS 325 chain. Yeah. Garrett was running a stock 325 chain. I think he might have hit it just a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, it's really painfully difficult. And the people that are doing this, that are going to races, they all say the same thing. It's not just me. The people that are winning the races, winning them, are with me going, yep, stock C83, stock 23 RS, steel 325 chain, or whatever it is. They're just like, it's painfully difficult to get it faster than stock. And so they just run stock chains. Now, at the real races where you have unlimited, you can do whatever you want to that chain. Yeah, you can get them faster. But yeah, I've rambled. Later.